Hi everyone and welcome to the Colour Cave where we like to play with art stuff. My name is Jem and I have been taking a crack at the February Upcrate battle. I wanted to talk a little bit about it first before we jump to the video. I actually ended up redoing my piece because I wasn't happy with it. I will show you both of them, and most of you know by now that I like to keep things real, and I was just really dissatisfied with what I'd produced because I thought I was capable of doing a bit better and doing more. I have been really pressed for time, and it's kind of an ongoing theme. We've got a lot of builders and things in because we're in the new cave, so I really had a really tight time constraint. So the second picture, which is the one you're going to see the full process of, I've actually just finished. I sat and did it in my pyjamas this morning so that you guys don't miss out in a video, and so that I was slightly more satisfied with my artwork. I think there's still a long way to go, but I'll let you guys be the judge of that. And if you want to impart any of your wisdom in terms of watercolour upon me, please feel free to do so in the comments. So we're just going to go to top down view now, and you can see my efforts for the February Upcrate battle, which was Love of Animals. Let's get going. So here is the original artwork in all its glory. The idea for the prompt was to depict a little set of children who are peeking round the side of a tree because they've put out some food for some birds and some squirrels. And I just felt that it wasn't concentrated enough and there wasn't really a focal point, which is why I decided to redo it. So the first thing I'm doing here is obviously mixing up some paint, and I wanted to put a really pale wash in the background. I did toy with the idea of using masking fluid, but again, because it's a challenge, it's kind of cheating. So I kept this wash very wishy-washy, and I just sort of damped out some clouds there with a bit of tissue, and then added a wee bit of depth to the sky. But see, I wanted to keep that pale, bearing in mind that watercolour is quite transparent. I was going to paint over the top of it, so I didn't want anything that was going to sort of show through, and I could build up the colour of the foreground a bit better that way. So you can see there, I've just literally like squished all the water out of the water brush to really sort of pale that down, and you can hardly see the green here, but I do build it up later on once I've put in other aspects of the picture. So on to what is my favourite part, which is trees. And I have to say, I quite like this water brush. I think I'm going to be using it again. I am fast becoming a fan of the Milan products. Now, what I found with this paper was that if you kept the paint wet, you didn't have to work particularly quickly, and you could fill in quite large areas, but you could also outline as if you were doing it with a pencil. And when you went back over it again, as long as you sort of rubbed into the lines, you could sort of dilute them out, as it were. So you could actually draw with this water brush. And I don't know what it is, but when I paint in watercolour now, I never want to seem to pencil out an outline, you know, with a normal pencil. I just want to paint, and I find that quite odd actually, but you know, that's something I learned about myself. So getting on with my trees and my branches here. So by changing the orientation of the paper, I felt as if I could have a much more focused view of what I was trying to paint, because I kind of felt like the other painting was just a landscape that happened to have, you know, this little squirrel and this little bird. Whereas by concentrating it down into a much narrower width, it kind of like draws your eye to what the actual point of the picture is, and hence the point of the prompt. This is the outlining I was talking about earlier with the brush, and you can see that I've totally diluted out those lines. So that's a really handy thing. I don't know if it's common practice in watercolour, but it works for me. And here is the teeny tiny Milan brush. I absolutely freaking love this brush, and I am going to be using it all the time. I like teeny tiny brushes because it's probably the closest thing in painting to using a pencil, probably why I like it, but it allowed me to put in so much detail. And putting in the detail was my favourite part of doing this painting, aside from doing the trees, because I just like to paint trees. And the precision that I got with it was absolutely fabulous. One thing I did find about these paints, now I don't know if this is specific to the Van Gogh or Van Gogh paints particularly, or whether it's a tube watercolour thing, because I'm not very experienced with tube watercolour, but I found it very difficult to dilute it. It didn't seem to be very mobile, and they do say that it's really concentrated and, you know, a little bit goes a long way, but I found it was either really viscous, undiluted, you know, a bit like gouache would be, and then the minute you added water to it, it just sort of like all squished out into this really pale blah. So yeah, I'd love any comments on that, but I didn't find it particularly mobile as a paint. As I say, I don't know whether that's brand related or that's, you know, specific to tube watercolour. So it's starting on my wee squirrel here, and again, this wee brush was just absolutely fantastic for this, and absolutely no need to draw out an outline, just straight in with the brush, because I kind of felt like I was drawing anyway, and the level of detail I was able to put in on that little table and the squirrel itself with that brush was absolutely fabulous. And I think it just made me feel as if I felt as if my first painting was very infantile, and I think it was because it was lacking that level of detail, and to be honest, I kind of rushed it a little bit as well. So jumping back and forth between the tiny brush and now the water brush here as well, just to start building up that colour, a little bit of interest in that foreground, and then the sort of finer details of the animals. It was just absolutely delightful. I am so pleased with this box, I really, really am. And I thoroughly enjoyed doing this second painting once I'd kind of like got to grips with what I was actually trying to produce and the vision that was in my head. The only place I feel like I fell short was drawing the children's faces in. I don't draw people anyway, let alone paint them, and I am definitely not skilled enough to start painting humans, especially at the scale they were on. So I kind of think that that lets this painting down a little bit, and it's the part that I'm kind of most disappointed in. But that's something that I can work on, you know, as I improve my watercolour skills. The pencils came in handy. To be honest, I could have survived without them. I kind of used them because I felt I should be using them. But again, just for putting a wee shadow under our squirrel friend here, and just a few sort of finishing flicks was pretty handy. What I will say is though, I had to sharpen those pencils to a very, very fine point because the paper is quite textured. If you wanted that precision from a pencil over watercolour, which is what we look for, then you need to have a very pointy point. Adding in a bit of interest now, so I'm just using the green that I was using before. I'd let it dry a wee bit so it was kind of more concentrated, and I just put in a few little fronds of grass and, you know, one thing and another. Again, just kind of like trying to add to the atmosphere that there's this little clearing in these woods. It's maybe out the back of the children's house, or it's a favourite spot that they go to. So it kind of makes it feel a bit cosier, I think. And I had that nice cosy feeling in the foreground, but I felt that the background didn't really match up. So that's why I decided to go back in, and you'll see in just a bit I do add more things in the background. So back to this little brush and doing my favourite thing, adding in the detail on the trees. I could have sat here all day quite happily and just kept going over and adding more depth and dimension to these tree trunks with the same paint. I'm not, you know, I didn't mix a different colour, and just literally layering it up, which is one of the joys of watercolour and one of the reasons I am enjoying it as a medium. If I'd had more time, I probably would have spent a bit more time on my tree trunks, but I was very, very satisfied, and I was very happy sitting there just putting in these little flicks and just adding in, you know, all these like different little lines. And I was trying to go with the previous layers sort of ebb and flow, you know, where my paint strokes had been. I was trying to build on those and utilise what was already there just to make the tree look a bit more tree trunky. But yeah, that honestly, I really enjoy that, and I don't know why, but I just find it really relaxing, and I'm quite satisfied with the outcome once it's finished. But you could go on forever. You get to a point where you have to leave these things alone. So I'm adding in a little birdie here. I really wanted to use the sort of pinky paint neat because it was such a bright and vibrant colour, so I decided to keep that for my wee bird that was hanging off his bird feeder. So I used the pencil here for the children and just added in a wee bit of paint, and you can see they're just kind of like peeking around the corner, and I still have this regret that I didn't try and do a bit more with that, but as I say, I'm not really skilled in that department, but it is kind of a bit of a regret. So I have no idea what kind of bird this is. I added a little bit of blue pencil around that as well, just to make it a bit more interesting, and used the neat paint straight out the tubes to add some flowers to those fronds down the bottom, and just sort of, I don't know, I wanted to use the colours like in their vibrant form as well, because they are really nice colours. and I thought adding in those little dots down the bottom was the best way to do it, and it just brings a wee pop of colour to the front of the picture as well. So yeah. And this is where I'm adding in more leaves on top, and again this is just back to layering, give it a bit of depth and dimension, and it's something that I do all the time. I do it when I'm drawing as well with trees, and I used the green that I'd used down the bottom, but I also took some of the turquoise paint neat and then did another layer over the top of that. And again, I think if I'd had more time I would have probably have built that up a bit more and, you know, made it really sort of dense and lush. But I was trying to think as well about what time of year this would be, and I'm thinking it's probably springtime. You know, if the kids are putting things out for the animals, especially bird feeders, you know, there's maybe not a lot for them to eat elsewhere. So I thought it's maybe springtime. So maybe the trees wouldn't be quite so lush, you know, compared to like the middle of the summer. So onto this background part now, and I wanted to add in some more trees in the distance, and it was just to help try and sort of enclose that front space, you know, that focal point, and just make it a bit more sort of ensconced. So a really watered down version of my tree trunk colour, just so that the trees look as if they are off in a distance a bit, and then what was left of that paler green that I'd mixed up, which was just the turquoise and a bit of yellow, and that actually worked out pretty well. So here I'm going back with the turquoise now just to add in some more of those little leaves, and yeah, that's pretty much it, I think. So I am much happier with this version of the painting, and I'm glad I took the time to do it again. And yeah, so definitely learned some lessons, had great fun. I would love to know your thoughts on this. You can tell me what you think. Which one do you prefer? I certainly prefer this one. But yeah, that's about it. So here it is a bit closer up now, and you can see where I've added things in and one thing and another. So overall, a really good experience, apart from the kids' faces, which, yeah, well, you win some, you lose some. But that is the Upcrate battle for February, and the prompt was love of animals. I just want to thank you very much for watching and taking the time to come and spend time with me in the cave, and we shall see you for another video really soon. Have a great day everyone, and bye for now.